Hi, welcome to Revive Ministries Podcast. Today we continue to discuss securing our value regarding our overall wellness. Value is a lot of times separate when we talk about health and overall wellness, but I think the two a lot of times need to be addressed. And this, like I said, it's a tribute. A lot of times with tributes, we always have to remember and the importance of our overall wellness. Today, I have a dear friend of mine. Me and my wife are close friends with this new guest, Jen. Thank you so much for agreeing to share your insight with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Robert.
I want to share with those who are always listening that if you are in crisis, please seek appropriate professional help. The crisis hotline is 1-800-273-8255. But wherever you are around the world, because I know I have listeners around the world, try to find what's available in your area. And, support comes in very different ways. Some of us lean towards our faith. Some people lean to certain groups, AA, whatever it is. Find what's out there. I usually say this, Jen. People say things better than I do. I try my best, but I like to use quotes to kind of begin us in this journey of talking about securing our value. And it's from Jim Rohn. It says, the major value in life is not what you get. The major value in life is what you become. What comes to mind when you hear this, Jen?
Yeah, I think that for me, I just think life is so short, and you just think about time and sort of movement, and we can accumulate all these different things, but at the end of the day, when we do die, none of those things go with us. So I think, with each, I think sometimes I used to think it's these large decisions that really set the course of our life, but I really think it's those habits, those small decisions that we're sort of unconsciously or subconsciously making each day. And so I think with each of those decisions, we're becoming, who we are. And so I think that's a lot more powerful than anything that we can attain or can essentially sort of grasp at times.
And I like what you're saying, the habit. It's a consistency. It's not like you go to the gym, you work out a whole lot, and then you don't for like 2 weeks. It doesn't do much. It's a consistency that matters. And I also like what you said, because value looks different for each culture, family around the world. However, we are more like each other when it comes to loss and pain. It's crazy. Like a lot of times when we think of value, it could be like, oh, only if I graduate from this university, get this kind of job, get this kind of title. But like you said, at the end, it doesn't really matter. It really matters of what you've become and those little steps along the way. Um, and well, I wanted to go forward and ask you, value is kind of the central focus what we're talking about. And a lot of people are like, well, we're talking about national wellness. What does that have to do with value? I go to the gym, I run and all that stuff. But if you don't have like a positive value system, it can actually, in my experience, be detrimental. What has your experience been when you had in your overall wellness when it comes to how you saw yourself and your value of yourself? Would you like to share, Jen?
Yeah, no, I think sort of just going back to what you said about how value is defined differently for different cultures. So, for example, maybe in one culture, on one continent, value is defined by what school you go to and your professional accolades. But maybe somewhere else, value is defined, maybe for a family by the number of children they have and how they carry that name. And so, at least for me, I'm brought up in a certain culture, and I think for me, value had to come from something that didn't change. But then culture is like you can constantly be trying to hit a mark based on sort of what's the fad in that culture. And so for me, I think it's deep rooted in my faith and like a sense of serving, actually.
Yes.
And for me, that's great because I think it's clearly laid out sort of how I can live like the maximum life. in that service, it's like you love others just as much as you love yourself and love God. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's like, for me, God is always constant, right? He hasn't changed. Jesus Christ hasn't changed. And so
Mm-hmm.
my value is in something that's like very anchored by maybe what is the fad for this decade and then the next decade. So
It's funny, Sebastian, our friend, he did a sermon a couple weeks ago, and he talked about how we ask our parents why they do what they do. Well, grandma told us to do it. Why does grandma do it? And we still don't know. And I do like obviously Revive Ministries doesn't proselytize, but you have to ask a question: why do you do what you do? And for me, I like the analogy of you saying God is constant, the one thing that doesn't change. And for me, that's the same thing for me. There's a lot of variables with people. And people ever change. I have periods of people who are very vital to my life 10 years ago, but not so much. But I still love them, and I wish them the best. It's just people change. But it's encouraging, especially those rainy days when things are not going well, when everyone seems to be against you, to have that constant, faith that God that doesn't change. Everything in this world constantly changes. So I do appreciate you sharing that.
yeah.
And then in the same run, how has value been in a negative way? I think this is when what we were talking about before, these only if statements. If value was always intrinsically somewhere else or with someone else, you have no control over that. So I feel like that's where you kind of go ebb and flow. What has your experience been with that?
Yeah, I think for me, in a negative way, just sort of what I grew up around, especially as a woman, like value is really in sort of my appearance, right? So you always wanted to look the best, and you wanted people to be attracted to the way you looked and the way you presented yourself, and even also just like the education you get and what school you go to. And I'm not saying those are bad things, but when all my being is sort of defined by those things, it's almost like, for me at least, like it was almost unattainable. Like I needed to just be perfect.
Yeah.
I think that's very prideful and like selfish in a way, because I think the way I try to see myself is the way I see others, right? So then I'm just judging people from that lens, and then you think about relationships, and you're trying to be something that is like unattainable. It just like sort of cascades into every facet of life. So to be honest, that's something that I've been addressing. Like, well, what is perfection? And again, like of course, we should look nice, and try to use the talents given us to bless others and bless ourselves, but that's not our identity or everything that we are.
There's this one statement that I kind of stole, but I like it. It's okay to not be okay. A lot of times we don't give ourselves room. Like a lot of times we're like, well, I need to look this way. I need to do this much, and we're just busy. And like you said, life is so short. We're not really ever present. It's always somewhere else we need to be, or with someone else, or obtaining some sort of title. And for me, that could be discouraging after a while. The burden of expectation gets heavy. I think, with our faith, it has helped us have that constant. I do like, and I think one thing I like about my faith, and I don't really share this a lot, but I think in the 5 books in the beginning of the Torah, there's this one portion where they talk about God as having no borders, because back then they had idols, and like they wanted to shape it, because always we as human beings, we want some certainty, that things are gonna work out, and I think even the lessons, whether you're faith-based or not, are transferable today. You got the Tower of Babel. We're trying to secure something that we have no control over. A lot of times we try to make these I don't know, these used car salesman kind of things to ourselves, saying that no, only if I do this, these things will work out. And you could get very discouraged if it doesn't, and one of the reasons we talk about securing value, especially I think in this month, is if I feel I'm worthless, then I'm not going to treat myself like I'm well, this is kind of worded wrong, but what I'm trying to say is, if I don't feel well about myself, if my value is low, why would I eat well? Why would I go to the gym? Why would I care? Like, it comes to, like, both matter. Like, if you don't take care of your physically, it'll affect your mental. But in the start, if you automatically say, I am worthless because I haven't meet all these standards that I had for myself, it's going to be harder and harder if they to kind of say, I need to take care of myself. I need boundaries to kind of, breathe. I need to say, hey, I should eat better. I should learn how to cook better. I should feed myself better instead of just, I have no time. I'm so busy. I'm just going to get whatever I get. I think that's when you start building on your value and you kind of treat yourself better in that way. Mindset is a huge component, whether positive or negative. We're not static individuals, and I think when we have the mindset that this is the way it was and it should always be this way, I think we have this disadvantage of not really, and I'm not really broadening our thought and going through the process of rediscovering ourselves, seeing who we become and where we want to be. Like you said in the beginning, the one constant in life is change. This is one quote I want you to hear, and I want to hear your insights from George Bernard Shaw. It says, 2 things define you: your patience when you have nothing, and your attitude when you have everything. So what comes to mind? For me, I think it's a lesson that a lot of us forget to learn. So what comes to mind when you hear this, Jen?
Yeah, I guess the latter part of that stood out more to me. Like, I guess when you have everything, I think everything can maybe be different for other people. Maybe they have dreams to, like, be some star one day. I don't know, be a father or mother. But I think it's like building the resilience. I think you were talking about just like the mind, and I think like you are what you behold, what you think. It says, like, by beholding you become changed, and just like when you eat, you're you're giving your body certain things, what you're reading and watching and hearing, it's affecting us. So I just think attitude is such a positive thing, and I think we can build endurance by going through different things. We know that life will not be easy. There will be ups and downs, but I think sort of coming out of those valleys, you can build that resilience and that patience. And again, I guess for me, like, I think the biggest, one of the most important things is like having hope.
Yes.
Because we all will go through trials, but it's like, do you have that hope to know that, like, you'll be okay, that this is not the end of the world? And hopefully people, I think that's where community is important, and people around to encourage you and uplift you, and that going back to sort of that service piece. But I think that's sort of where you can have that patience when you have nothing, to know that, like, there's hope. Hope.
Listening to you, I just remember this. I think a few weeks I prayed at church in an accessory, and I remember this quote I used. It says, leave everything undefined, including yourself. Befriend uncertainty. Fall in love with mystery. Kneel at the altar of not knowing. Give your questions time to breathe, and the answers will find you. I find it kind of really haunting, but it, like, for us, we're so scared of the uncertainty, of the not knowing, and obviously rightfully so. Like, there were times where, like, what is going to happen with me? What's next? Why am I doing it? Is this the right move? Did I make the right choice? But at the same time, I feel that's where hope and faith comes in. You're befriending uncertainty because you have the hope of something better, and not only something better that, we brought up our faith a bit, and I think, the book of Job really speaks to me, because I read that book so many times. In the book of Job, at the end of it, I just remember him, whether things go good or bad, he had this constant, because he, God is constantly not changing. He's the same. So he had that anchor, and I felt that was very healthy in his attitude because he knew he was blessed. It was not that he successfully passed the test. It was just the demonstration of how life is. You get the environment we're in and the selfishness that sometimes are around us, but I think the attitude is what stick out to me. Like he says, whether good or bad, I will still praise God. Praise God for that. And I feel that attitude is the embracing or befriending of uncertainty. I feel sometimes we're just scared. I'm just scared. Like what's gonna happen, and then we say and we do things, or we judge people or judge ourselves. With not much tact. A lot of times it's just like, well, like not everyone's going to understand what you're going through, and it's okay. Surround yourself with friends that even though they don't understand, that they're there for you. It's not the people who are just like when you're having good times, you're like, yeah, this is fun. It's when things are falling apart and they're still there picking up the pieces. And I think those are the healthy, safe places. And this is what I feel with Revive Ministries we try to do. It's not that we have it all figured out. It's that we continue to talk about it. We're tribute to national wellness. Why does that matter? Because of the people, because of the families that we are connected to, because of the friends, the people we love. Why is mental health important to me? Because of the people. We can't make it so complicated. Why is substance use so important to me? Because of the people I've lost. That's why. So I want to ask you as we wrap up, listening right now, if someone's listening right now that has, basically someone who's struggling with value, what would you say to them right now as we kind of wrap up? Any final thoughts, Jen, that you would like to share that has helped you? No, everyone has their own perspective.
Yeah. I think I would, first of all, my heart goes out to them because we all struggle with this. And just like you're not alone, I guess, is something that I'd say, and something that I have to remind myself. And just sort of thinking of everything you were just speaking about, I think what came back to me is, it can be a very heavy burden for anyone when you're dependent just on yourself. Like all your dreams are just, I have to do this, I. And I just encourage people, like, I think there's so much power and trust in a higher power, trust in knowing that you do not go alone. I'm a Christian, so just I know the Bible tells us we wrestle not against flesh, but against spiritual things that we can't see. And so, I think faith is such a huge piece of it, and just being renewed each day and growing in that faith. And then just like the community and just the power and service, and not dwelling in idle time of just dwelling in your head and just woe is me. I think just like getting out there and helping someone else or serving someone else, I think there's power in that, because it's not just about you. And I think it can not only uplift that person but also uplifts us. So I think the faith and community piece is huge.
I really like what you said about service. When I first started to get, my healing, getting through recovery, I just remember helping people was my healing. Serving people became my recovery. I feel service is a huge deal, especially for me. And I just want to say, thank you for your service, Jen. I know, like, I just gonna say this because I'm in an Air Force, Chair Force. I'm just, but anyway. With that being said, anyway, Jen served as an officer in the Navy. I always want to highlight that, because service, the camaraderie, at least I experienced in the military, is I can't receive outside. It's some of the people who I've worked with. It was something I missed. That's one thing I missed. The people. Like, obviously you have bad days and good days in the military, depending how. But at the same time, I think the work ethic is on point. We're all in this together. I think that's a very healthy attitude. Looking forward, I just want to say thank you, Jan, for being willing to share with us today. I feel all those who are listening, purpose-driven recovery is what I really feel is important. And one of my friends who struggles with alcoholism, she said, if every day was just not to drink, what's the point? It has to be more. Ask yourself why. Why do you do what you do? And I feel you may find some value in things that will bring you hope. And I feel for me, that's what this is all about. Thank you, Jen, again. I want to share with those who are listening. You can always find Revive Ministries at the website, reviveministriesfl.com. This is goodbye from Revive Ministries, leaving you with the last quote. It's from George Bernard Shaw again. I guess I like him. A life spent making mistakes is not only more honorable, but more useful than a life spent doing nothing.